So, about a week ago, I released my Icebreaker review. Icebreaker was supposed to open in 2020 after it finished construction in February of 2020. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it was delayed heavily into 2022, where it finally opened up just this month. Well, Icebreaker wasn't the only SeaWorld coaster to receive this massive delay. Busch Gardens Tampa in Tampa, Florida had a roller coaster that received the exact same treatment. Finished construction in February 2020, heavily delayed, and is finally opening in March of 2022. However, instead of a family launched coaster that's just supposed to add as a nice little addition to the park, this was a 200 plus foot tall hybrid roller coaster that was arguably the most anticipated coaster edition in 2020. So, this one hurt a lot more than Icebreaker. Now, I may not have seen it as much as Icebreaker, but the fact that a possible best coaster in the entire world was an hour away from me, yeah, it hurt. However, this past week, I was invited to experience Iron Gwazi for the very first time, and this is years in the making right here. To see Iron Gwazi running and being able to experience it was truly something special. It was an unreal experience. We arrived at the park at 6 a.m. before the sun rose, and we secured our first ride around 7:15 a.m. Now let's just get straight into it. When you walk up to Iron Gwazi, you're greeted with this beautiful station. Obviously, this is meant to give tribute to the original Gwazi, and for those who didn't know, Gwazi was a dueling wooden roller coaster that operated for many years at the park. RMC then came in 2019 to completely redesign the coaster, as they did with many old wooden coasters, and they turned it into Iron Gwazi. And it's also super impressive to see how well Busch Gardens reused this entire building. The logo stands out right in the center, and you have the beautiful layout right behind it, with this massive lift hill and the wave turn over the station. It's so picturesque, especially compared to some of the other rides in the park. It's a great entrance to this stunning roller coaster. As you walk towards the entrance, you are then greeted with this giant entrance sign, which is probably the most photogenic entrance out there. The sign stands out, and the fact that they reused the original Gwazi entrance is incredible. I started coming to Busch the last few months when Gwazi was still standing, and started going as they began construction. So for me, it's very funny to just see the transformation from the original Gwazi to Iron Gwazi, but it's also incredible to see at the same time. You enter the attraction and enter the queue line. Busch Gardens completely reused the original Gwazi queue line, which honestly, I really like. It adds some nostalgia to guests who have been going to Busch for years. So many people were just getting emotional walking through that queue line again because it brought back so many memories. However, they did refurbish the queue by adding some new flooring, repainted pretty much everything, and added some new queue signs to share both information about the coaster and crocodiles, since that is the theme of this ride. After you walk up the ramps, you then enter the station, and oh my gosh, this station is massive. Since Busch reused the station from the original Gwazi, it's huge because obviously the building was designed to handle a dueling coaster. And since this ride only has one side, they put some extra switchbacks over the second station. And it's kind of funny because you can see the hole where the lion side used to dispatch, and it's just covered with a wooden fence. So if you're standing directly in front of it, you're pretty much standing on the original Gwazi's track. After these extra switchbacks, you board the RMC steering axle trains, pull down your restraint, and then you're all clear and out of here. These trains are nice. It looks really good, especially off the ride. I love that crocodile front. It's so picturesque. And the trains are not uncomfortable at all. First, you put on your seatbelt, which is a little annoying, but it definitely isn't as annoying as other RMC seatbelts I've experienced. They don't get stuck in the restraint and leave giant bruises on your thighs like Lightning Rod. The restraint itself is really nice, very minimal and comfortable. The only thing that annoys me are those shin guards. I've never enjoyed shin guards. Now, out of all of the shin guards I've used, RMC easily has the best. It's padded really well, and it doesn't completely restrict your legs from moving. However, after a few rides, your thighs will not only get bruised, your shins will get way more bruised. I noticed my shins hurting a lot more than my thighs by the end of my 19 rides. Now, let's get to the ride experience. You dispatch out of the station, turn to the left, slow down a little bit, and dive down into a small turn and begin your ascent up the 206-foot lift hill. This lift hill is massive and steep. It takes you up at a 45-degree ascent, and every time I started going up the lift, I was always shocked because this thing is absolutely massive. When you get to the top, you slow down a little bit and dive down the steepest drop on a hybrid coaster with 91 degrees. This drop is messed up. It feels like it never stops. The airtime is crazy. It takes a little bit of time for it to hit that 91-degree point, so it just feels like you keep falling. It's easily, in my opinion, the best drop on an RMC. After you pull up into an outer bank, and I have never been impressed with any outer banked airtime hill until this ride. The pull up into the element is super intense as I was graying out almost every ride. And then when you whip into that airtime hill, the floater is something else. After you head back down and pull up into the iconic death roll. First, this pull up is once again really powerful, as it had me graying out again almost every ride. And the first half of this ride is super intense. I want to make that very notable. And this death roll is really fun. Now, I was looking forward to the death roll a lot more than other elements, and unfortunately, I was a bit disappointed. The whip is really good, but you don't really experience any hang time or laterals or that much airtime. It's just a really fast inversion. You get a little bit of airtime if you're towards the back row, but that's really it. You then enter the cutback, which is just a tight overbank turn. It isn't really a true cutback, but it is a powerful element. The forces going in is really good, and the whip coming out of it is super strong, and it gives a nice little pop of airtime as you come out of that cutback. You then enter the first wave turn over the station, and I've never really been a fan of wave turns, but this element has changed my opinion. The airtime you get going through this element is unreal, as you just get absolutely ejected on that transition, and the floater as you go through the element is messed up. I really wasn't expecting this at all. You then go over a small airtime hill, and the pop in the front is really strong. After you enter your second wave turn, which is just as good as the first, and you then enter a 0G stall. And personally, this is my favorite stall I've experienced on any roller coaster. The hang time is really good, and you get a little bit of floater going through it, but the whip out of this stall in the back row is astonishing. It's super snappy since it turns you more than 180 degrees, unlike your average stall. You then go through an outer banked hill, which gives a nice little pop of airtime, and pull up into your trick track. The first pop is really good, but it's nothing to rave about. Now, this second drop, however, is the strongest moment of airtime on the ride, in my opinion. The speed in the back row going through this pop is messed up, and since it twists, it makes the pop even stronger. After you enter one final airtime hill, which again is super strong, and you whip into the final brake run. And after this, you then go through the maintenance shed and pull back into the station. And one cool touch that Busch Gardens did add was they put the original Gwazi front cars from the old PTC trains in the maintenance shed, and they look better than ever, so that was a really nice touch. So overall, Iron Gwazi is a beast. I love a lot of the hidden Gwazi Easter eggs Busch put around this ride. It shows that they really care about the attraction's history. Now, here's one thing I will say. After my first ride, I was extremely disappointed. Now, granted, we rode really early in the morning, when the temperature was only 48, so it was cold. It was still fun, but I was extremely underwhelmed. Towards the end of the day, I got 19 rides total, and those last 8 rides especially, it was running at full speed, and it was a completely different experience. The ride was so much more intense, and the airtime was much stronger, so I highly recommend when you ride Gwazi for the first time, wait till around 2 p.m., cause you will be disappointed. Now, another thing is that it doesn't really matter where you sit on this ride, because no matter where you sit, the ride is awesome. The front and the back feel like two completely different experiences, but both have their equal highlights. Some elements are better in the front, and some are better in the back. And also, don't sleep on the middle. A middle row ride on this thing is still legendary. So overall, Iron Gwazi is an incredible new roller coaster. Now, let's answer the question that everyone is asking. Is it my new number one? Is it the best roller coaster in the world? Personally, I still cannot say yes or no. It definitely is in my top 5, but I just need more rides to decide whether or not it's better than Steel Vengeance, Intimidator 305, and Jurassic World Velocicoaster. It definitely has potential, but I still have to think. Past Weather previews have just started, and the ride officially opens on March 11th, so I highly recommend you plan a trip to Busch Gardens Tampa to experience this legendary hybrid coaster. So, those are my thoughts on Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa. If you haven't already yet, make sure you subscribe and check out my podcast On the Hunt for some of my more detailed thoughts on Iron Gwazi. And if you want any non-copyrighted off-ride or POVs, check out my second channel, TPH Productions, in the description down below. As always, this is Hunter from Theme Park Hunting. I'll see you guys later, and follow the thrill.